Hello and welcome to another episode of the e-commerce coffee break podcast. Today we want to dive into payment systems and break down how payment barriers in e-commerce might hinder you from making conversions, making more money, increase your profitability. Now that's a huge topic, and I have with me Ralph Dangelmaier. He's the CEO and board member of bluesnap.com. He's a sought-after public speaker, broadcast commentator, and thought leader, having published numerous articles. He serves on the board of BlueSnap, ETA, Stonehill College, and formerly on the board of directors of Mineral Tree, which has had a successful exit to global payments in 2020. With over 30 years of experience in fintech and payments, he is at the forefront of e-commerce innovation, using his knowledge to raise capital and grow public and private companies. So Ralph has a huge background when it comes to payment systems, and that's what we're talking about today. So let's welcome him to the show. Hi, Ralph. How are you today?
I'm doing great, Klaus. Thanks for having me.
Ralph, payments in e-commerce, that's a huge topic, and a lot of merchants have problems to understand how it actually works. There are so many parties involved in it. There's a technical part, there's a banking part, there's a payment processing part. Maybe give me an idea, what are the biggest challenges and misunderstandings merchants have when it comes to payments?
Yeah, sure. Well, I think you sort of hit it on the head. It is understanding all of the bits and bytes that you need to do to successfully accept a payment, whether it's online or using an invoice or maybe a marketplace. And then the different ways payments get processed properly or appropriately or efficiently in each one of the markets. So we help merchants sell in 198 different countries. We're local in 47. We work with 35 banks around the world to localize transactions, which increases your authorization rates, lowers your cost. And you can do that in lots of currencies and payment types. And then you've got to create your value-added services in each one of these. So trying to unpack that and understand that becomes extremely difficult, which is why I'm embracing sort of a newer term in the market of payment facilitation, or PSPs, marketplaces, called payment orchestration. So I think a key thing is, how do you understand payment orchestration, what's right for you?
Mm-hmm. I think having an orchestra behind that is a good example or a good picture on how it actually works. Now, most merchants, specifically when they go on Shopify, they start their business there. They start what they get basically in front of Shopify. Now, there is a lot of pitfalls in there when it comes to how the cost of transaction, how many different payment options they can offer. Maybe we can break it a little bit down in these different parts and give me an understanding of what's actually involved to do a payment.
Sure. So Shopify, great platform, really popular for selling things online. We're going to call that online selling more so than invoicing. Shopify has done a lot of great connectivity to multiple payment providers around the world. And they really help you through how to set up your store and your storefront. I think where people need more assistance with Shopify is, what is the best way to set up your payments? How do I set up payments in Germany or Argentina or Canada or Australia that's most effective? And we found clients coming to us with Shopify that really needed more guidance on the most effective way to do that. Shopify has, as you know, built-in solution, which I think works really well, particularly domestically, right? So in the country, but I don't know if it's optimized as well outside of the countries, using all the payment types, using all the currencies, turning on and off the different compliance and fraud tools that you need in these countries, which is why they connect to a lot of the people in the payments ecosystem. But again, the merchant has to figure it out more on their own than not. And I think that is really the challenge for the merchant, is how to optimize it.
Mm-hmm. When we talk about global, obviously there's different payment methods that people prefer in certain countries than in others. And as I said, it's on the side of the merchants to figure that out, which might be very, very difficult to do so. How we help you with that?
Yeah, so what we tend to do with the merchant is we look at where are they based, where are they currently based? Maybe they're based in 3 or 4 countries. Where are their shoppers based? And then try to match their location with their shoppers as much as possible. So keep the transaction in the country, and where possible, present the local payment type. because, as you know, people in like the Dutch, they like to use Ideal for certain online transactions. The Germans like to use real-time payments for certain transactions, and they sort of go against the card brands as a general rule for certain transactions. So you need to serve them the checkout page that matches their currency, their payment method, and to keep the cost down and keep your conversions high. So as you brought up in the very beginning of your podcast, how do you make more money and reduce your costs? You localize the transaction. A lot of those transactions that are localized, A, are safer, so there's less risk, and B, you're going to get a higher authorization rate, and C, a lot of these countries have imposed regulations on the card networks that they can't, that they're capped on their fees. So by nature, those fees are going to be cheaper. When you cross a border with the transaction, Germany, United States, Argentina, you inevitably hit a couple more things. There's more risk in the transaction. The transaction doesn't go through as well. The second thing is the transaction cost is higher because it's not really a regulator regulating German and American payments, right? And the other thing is it may not settle in the currency that your shopper's familiar with, so they get a little confused on what they're really paying for, so they back out of the transaction. So these are just some of the tips that we tend to do when we spend time with the client and say, like, this is really what we think is the best practice for setting up and accepting payments in this geography where your shoppers are located.
Mm-hmm. Now, there's different levels to it. Obviously, you have the technical level where you connect your store to whatever payment gateway is there, to whatever bank is behind that. Then you have the legal part of it. That's the authorization and to become a client. And all these things take some time to set it up. And obviously, you need to have the right knowledge. Give me an example. Like, for instance, you are based in the United States. You want to sell in, I don't know, somewhere in Europe. What's the process to get it up and running?
Yeah, so we have one integration to a series of APIs, which is the same across all the countries. What's different is what we call the application, the merchant application. The merchant has to apply for call it a bank account using multiple applications. It can be one holding company with multiple legal entities to set up these internal bank accounts that we set up on behalf of the clients because we're moving the money. And then once that happens, they will have access in their APIs to appropriately drop the correct payment type, currency, or value-added services on the checkout page that applies to the shopper. We'll use Germany as an example here. So that's the most effective way for them to check out. So there's a two-step process, right? There's a technical integration, which is very consistent, and then there's the called the physical application. It's all online. It's all done digitally, but there's still a presence that you have to go through where there's a verification of the legal entity and the bank accounts and all those things that we do. And then we pay out to wherever that bank account may happen to be in those countries.
Mm-hmm. Let's dive a little bit deeper into payment authorization. If you do cross-border payments, a lot of alarm bells go off. Fraud protection, credit cards are not being accepted, people getting a notice that some strange country, foreign country wants to take money from your credit card. I have experienced that in my own shop. How do you prevent this?
Yeah, so that's 100% true. So, so what we always try to do is we always try to keep that transaction local. Because if you think about it, if the shopper's in Argentina or Germany, United States, they're using a local bank, a card issued, debit or credit card issued in that local bank. If that local bank sees a card locally, it tends to give it a higher auth rate. So we're seeing usually, well over 95% auth rates when transactions are domestic. When transactions are cross-border, so an Argentinian card or a German issue card goes to the United States, that authorization can drop anywhere from 5 to 30%. It's just like you said, because there's rules put in by the issuer. Maybe Deutsche Bank put a rule in and said, geez, Klaus has never bought anything from Canada. And maybe you're going to Canada next week for holidays and you wanted to buy maple syrup. And you're online buying maple syrup. They say he's never done this before, so we're going to decline the transaction, right? So these are the kind of things that cause auth rate issues and cause higher cost issues. So you got to really dig into each one of these with examples, and this is what we tend to do with our customers. We have tons of examples of customers who started domestically, went internationally, and then we set them up in the national acquirers, and the auth rates went up, anywhere from 2 to 30%, depending on what kind of business they were doing and what kind of payment types they were taking. So you have amazing success, Klaus, by putting some analytics into this.
Mm-hmm. Keyword analytics reporting. What kind of support do I get from BlueSnap to understand where are my payments coming from? Is there kind of a recharge management in there? How does that work?
Yeah, so a couple of things. Number one is, we'll start with the reports. We have 100 reports, and you can create all your own reports on top of that. Within those 100 reports, we're giving you some of the basic things like sales, currencies, payouts, all those things everybody does. But we've added a couple of neat things in the reports, and they feel like we can tell you the authorization by your product SKUs, by your countries, by your card issuers. And we can tell you by dollar amount. So you can realize, so geez, maybe when I charge, $99 versus 100, I have a 95% success rate. When I charge 100, I might have an 80% success rate. So you can get down to that level of detail to help you effectively price your product as well. The other thing we're doing is we're showing you locally the success of your cards versus cross-border. So that's why we have these statistics, because that reporting is critical. And the last thing I think we do that's a little different is we give you fraud statistics. How many times we think fraudulent cards were coming in. And I know as we were talking earlier, you said you usually live in South Africa. Well, I'm just going to pick on South Africa just for a second. But maybe people from South Africa, they're going through a big change down there. So all of a sudden, some of the people might be committing a little more fraud. And so you're seeing card testing going on. So now you know that there's a little more fraud ticked up in South Africa. So what you need to do is more careful in what you're going to sell and how you're going to ship products to South Africa. Maybe you're going to change your behavior of how you ship or buy and sell goods online. But all of this data is sitting at your tip, so you can analyze it and create the optimal situation for your business.
Mm-hmm. I've never heard about such a granular reporting on payments. Usually the reporting that you get from your payment gateway provider is very little. And
Yeah.
then only if something goes wrong, then you get a message from them. So a complete different approach there. I like that. Where are the biggest cost savings using BlueSnap compared to sort of the traditional way to do a payment setup?
Well, look at BlueSnap has done a great job of providing a global and domestic platform, and we sort of pledge that if we can't figure out a way to save you money when you convert from your bank, or maybe you convert from what I'm going to call more of a startup platform like Stripe or PayPal, then you're not going to convert to us. So we have to provide you that value-added service of the ROI, because you're just not going to convert because you feel like it. You have to show your conversion is going to go up, your costs are going to go down. So, I'm not going to say every single time, but most of the time we work with a client, there's a little ROI spreadsheet that shows you're saving $10,000 a month, $50,000 a month, $100,000 a month as you're making this migration, because that's the only reason that you should reinvest. And generally, our customers are people that are already processing payments today somewhere. Generally work with startups. So that way we can really put a marker down on how to help them with an ROI.
Okay. Brings me to the questions. You just mentioned that startups. Who's your perfect customer? Are there specific verticals, industries, or niche that you work more with?
We don't have like a perfect vertical. We're generalists, but we do have, we work really well with people that immediately can be global. SaaS companies, retail companies, charities, education, manufacturing. Those guys tend to kind of fall into BlueSnap. So that's sort of a good verticals for us, because they're selling globally, they're doing online, and they're doing invoicing. So those are good verticals. We tend to like businesses that already have millions of dollars in processing today, because we can benchmark where it goes. And then it goes up to some of the biggest clients in the world. I mean, we do business with people like Schneider Electric, in Germany and France, big electric company. We do business with Ford Motor Car. We do business with people like Edible Arrangements, big French conglomerate called Arbonne. So we have a lot of pretty big clients as well. But I do think the underserved piece of the market would be more in the middle. It's the person that's got their foot on the ground and they're taking the next level of growth. That SMB going to mid-market, the mid-market going to large cap. Domestically, very good, but internationally is great.
Mm-hmm. How does the onboarding process look like? How much time do I need to invest? What are the steps there?
Well, there's two ways to connect to BlueSnap, right? One is you're on a platform as a plugin. So that's simple configuration, or you may want to connect to us directly through an API. That's a 2 or 3 week effort. And then once that happens, and once we get your merchant application, we have an automatic onboarding tool that boards you immediately to the bank that best suits your business type, your dollar ticket, and the countries you're selling in. Mm-hmm. So it's sort of like a rules-based engine.
Okay. So, as a merchant, are there any kind of homework that I need to do before I approach you? What kind of data do I need to prepare?
Well, it's funny you say that. We have an incredible website. It's got 800 pages on it. So it might seem overwhelming, but it's really full of content on how to best serve these markets. So we always like it when people would actually explore the website, read about things that they want to do, understand some of it, because it just helps go quicker. If you've never looked at a website, if you're trying to sell outside of your domestic country and you've never looked at a website, you're not going to know what your options are in Germany or in Netherlands or England or Canada or Australia. So we find that we got to kind of stop and educate people. So I find that that's something to do a little homework ahead of time is always a great idea. So our best customers have spent, maybe half of their research already on the website, and then maybe the other half of their time evaluating, working with us directly.
Yeah, it definitely helps to have a basic understanding on what you're looking for. I think that speeds up the process. Before we come to the end of the coffee break today, is there anything that you want to share with the listeners that we haven't covered yet?
No, but I forgot my cup of coffee, Klaus, now that I think about that. Darn. No, I think you did a really good job articulating all the little things to grow your business domestically and internationally. And I think the only other point that we should make is that some people use two systems, one for online selling and one for invoicing. And our whole story is you shouldn't need two payment providers. You should be able to really get to one. And this is what payment orchestration is really leading us to. This is really the beginning of a journey for almost all payment providers to become a payment orchestration provider to their merchants.
Yeah, definitely a very awesome solution you have there. I have set up in my professional past a couple of payment systems for businesses that I was running. It was always a pain in the neck. I think that's so much more straightforward what you have to offer at bluesnap.com. Before we leave, tell me a little bit about the pricing. How does that work?
Well, our pricing is really based on your volume. So we have an interchange plus model, and it's just tiered off what your volume is, a price for 100 million, price for 50 million, price for 10 million per month. And then the same works for the alternate payment method. So it's really competitive with, generally in that time, we're kind of competing with the banks because some of the providers that help smaller businesses don't really have that price. It's kind of like one price suits all. And that doesn't really work anymore for the growing dynamic businesses.
Okay. Where can people find out more about you guys?
Bluesnap.com. Great website, lots of contents, tons of white papers, great case studies, lots of great stories about our fantastic customer base. And we look forward to you visiting there.
Cool. I will put the link in the show notes and you're just one click away. Ralph, thanks so much for the time today. I think there was a lot of good golden nuggets in there and a lot of insights on how to optimize the payments for your business. And I hope a lot of people will check it out. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Hey, Klaus here. Thank you for tuning in to another episode. Before we wrap things up, I've got a couple of important points to share. Firstly, if you have enjoyed today's episode and want to support the show, here's a simple way to do it. Help me out with that algorithm magic by liking, commenting, and subscribing on your favorite podcast app. And if you're feeling extra generous, leaving a rating would be great. Your support helps me bringing more impactful guests on the show, and it makes it easier for others to discover the podcast. Secondly, I want to talk to all your business owners out there. Here's a question. Are you tired of juggling everything in your business while struggling with your marketing tasks? Fed up with hit and miss experiences of hiring freelancers or agencies that don't quite get your vision? But perhaps you're not ready to commit to a full-time in-house marketer just yet. Well, I've got a solution for you. Introducing our fractional marketing team. My team and I provide top-notch experienced marketing professionals to become an extension of your business. Not only will they save you up to 50% on cost compared to traditional hires, but they also take care of all this time-consuming, repetitive and complex marketing tasks that have been holding you back. And this way, you can concentrate on what truly matters, the core of your business. To learn more about how we can help you to scale up your online sales with a fractional team member, head over to our website, smart-ecommerce-marketing.com, or reach out to me directly and I'll get you the details. You will find the links in the show notes. Thanks for being a part of our podcast community, and remember, your support means the world to me. Until next time, see you then.